Hello, come inside of me. It's me, Tony. I'm here for dry hump day. It's Wednesday. I'm here for you to dry hump you. Um, so this is the day where I talk about things that I'm getting censored about talking about on the gram, on TikTok. I did just get a video pulled for violating community guidelines, and it's interesting because it was the exact video that I wanted to talk about. I appealed it and they gave it back to me. But I am seriously shadow banned on TikTok. I don't know what to do about it. If anyone works at TikTok and like needs me to blow them in order to unshadow ban me, I'm not going to do it, but I would participate in being a wing woman to help you facilitate a blowjob of some sorts, assuming you're worthy of a blowjob. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing to get out of the TikTok shadow ban world. It's real. It is real. They don't want to know what I gotta say on TikTok. I try to like talk and code and really figure out what the algorithm is not going to pick up on. I spell words like a maniac, but they're on to me. They know I'm an enemy of the state. Sorry, I had to do ASMR drinking coffee. And it's 1 p.m., not my usual coffee drinking time, but I had a appointment to try to heal myself earlier. Because I'm always fucking trying to heal myself. I would love to know what life was like without pain. That'd be so interesting. Who out there doesn't feel pain? Curious. All right, let's talk about what I wanted to talk about, which is racism. Let's talk about racism. But let's talk about it in the way I want to talk about it. Sometimes I rub my eyes on this podcast, which is totally fine for those who are just listening. And for those of you who are watching, you have to watch me rub my eyes. Also, haven't uploaded a video on YouTube in a while. It is hard to upload all the things on all the things. And right now I'm currently sweating labia. The labes are sweating. It is summer. It's hot. It's hard to enjoy your summer during a genocide and ice raids, but whew. All right, let's talk. I made a video where I was talking to people. Wait, what a great story I just started. Let me have the last sip of coffee. Let me have my last sip of personality. Here we go. I made a video about all these MAGA supporters that are really questioning their relationship to the administration because of the Jeffrey Epstein files. Of course, as I talked to you about it last week and I went on and on and on about it, there are those that are going to support the administration, support Trump, regardless of what kind of negotiating they have to do of reality. That is going to happen in the same way that happens with the Democrats. I do think that the genocide that the Democratic Party started, we have to be real about that. This started with a Democratic president, period, hook, line, and sinker. That's fucking real. So a lot of Democrats who I think would have been outraged had a genocide begun with a Republican president, they had to figure out how to shift their reality to support their political party. This is the same thing with the Epstein files. And I do think that there is like a genuine joy / game / intentional manipulation. I always am talking about psychological operations, psyops, but there is something about having someone bend reality in order to maintain party line loyalty that I think is very effective. Because the more you force them to bend reality, the more they're going to be vulnerable psychologically because they're always bending reality. You get what I'm saying? So this isn't like, I do think the intentionality, it's not like Trump was like, wait, I'm going to pretend to release the files and not release the files. I think we want to think this isn't as orchestrated as it is, but I think there is a major orchestration happening. But there is the unstable molecule of the American public, which is unstable. As much as they think that they can predict the predictive programming of our psychology, they're not always correct. And let me say something about that. So I do think that, media is obviously a tool of manipulation to get people to fulfill an agenda. We know this. I've talked about this over and over and over again. However, there is something predictable at play when you have group psychology. So the reason why group psychology is so fascinating as a study and as a subject is because it is like, it's a look into the collective consciousness, which is something that we fundamentally actually don't understand. So there is a mystery that goes on when we're thinking of groupthink. And even though, of course, powerful people have learned to manipulate the group psychology and have learned to create and cast spells of, these different shape-shifting realities that the group will bend their will towards. We've seen this happen time and time again. But what is interesting is when there is these deviations, right? When a molecule pops out from the expected norm and does something different. And that is something that we as the population have to really keep track of, is anomaly. Anomaly is the mother of evolution, truly. This whole idea of the survival of the fittest, absolutely not. It's the survival of the adaptable, right? That's what actually Darwin meant. I don't know if you know this about me, but I am a translator for Charles Darwin. He didn't mean fittest like the way that science is interpreting fit to mean strong/aggressive, or I think people, when they think of fittest, they think of fitness. They're taking the root of the word fit and they're miscalculating. What Darwin really meant was the survival of the most adaptable. And adaptability is rooted in anomaly. It's actually rooted in mutation often, because species go extinct because they are not adapting. And there is a mutation that happens, which in turn is more adaptable to the environmental shift. And so anomaly, mutations, things that deviate from the norm, that is the actual backbone of our evolution. I think I'm very correct when I just said that. I'm just channeling from the anthropologist of my spirit guides, but I am correct, So this is why I made a video about the MAGA supporters who are questioning their current loyalty to Donald Trump because of Jeffrey Epstein. And they're saying, I thought one thing and now I'm rethinking it. And I think that these anomalies, of course, again, I've seen all the people that are completely going back on their words. So don't get me twisted. I understand. I have eyes. I am paying attention. However, I am also seeing the anomalies of people actively and publicly saying, I don't support this anymore. I supported this and now I've changed my mind. And these people are very interesting people. These people are people that we need to embrace. And I know that that's complicated. I'm not saying that's easy. I'm saying it is complicated. However, we also must embrace those that are looking at the Democratic Party and question the Democratic Party because of its connection to genocide. It's the same thing. And I think what a lot of people are saying, or said on my video, and listen, if you're not white, if you are a non-white person and you have a hard time figuring out an alliance with people who are racist, understood. All right, I'm not telling anyone who's experienced severe racism when they should extend a hand to people who've been racist against them. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm talking to whiteys, okay? If you think that the Democratic Party is any less racist than the Republican Party, you're incorrect. And I'm going to take you down that road. The prison industrial complex began under Clinton, all right? This was a racist policy that Billy Clinton, him and his saxophone, just played the blues right into. And I explained the prison industrial complex in the last podcast. Go ahead and listen to it. Or actually, no, Friday's podcast, Free Ball Friday. I think it was the 13th episode, 14th. I don't know. Whatever. You figure it out. It's a Free Ball Friday one. I explained the prison industrial complex. That began with Billy Clinton. President Obama, former President Obama, the person who promised us hope and change, he put Mexican children in prison camps. He put them in cages. Okay? There are plenty of racist foreign policy that Obama was participating in. We all know he's the king of drones. So again, Joe Biden, there's nothing that Joe Biden was doing that was actually looking at systemic racism that's built into the very bones of our political system and our justice system. Not one thing. And I know we like to look at certain figureheads. Maybe one would look at a Lyndon B. Johnson or what's his nuts, John F. K., right? And we want to see these beacons of light and the Democratic Party as if these beacons of light were the ones that were structuring a non-racist country. Abso-fucking-lutely not. Even the ending of Jim Crow was all about optics and was replaced. It was replaced by a different slave labor system. So I'm sorry. I think if we're going to talk about racism, we have to talk about racism, which is deeply embedded within the Democratic Party, and that the Democratic Party is not only complicit, not only enables, but directly benefits from all these racist policies that the Republicans are just more open about enacting. And that, again, is intentional. All right? That is an intentional game that is being played so Democrats can be like, well, we're on the party that like supports women and supports non-whites. Not true. Not true. You have to look at how the system itself benefits from misogyny, benefits from abortion laws, both parties. Hello. We all know that Roe v. Wade could have been codified by the Democrats, and it was not. Having racism and having misogyny and abortion, these are incredibly important political manipulation tools. And I've said this before, I'm going to say it again, because you do not have to be educated to have an opinion about any of these subjects. You don't have to have any political education. You don't have to know about anything. You can just have an opinion about it from an emotional place. And that is why racism, misogyny, homophobia, abortion laws, they are so part of our political system, is because you can just have an opinion about it without spending the time to learn. So the Democratic Party, I think, is an incredibly racist party. And I think what they do is they create these like figureheads like AOC, like Mamdani, right? And they want you to believe in the good eggs. They're like, but look, there's an AOC, but look, there's a Mamdani. There's hope. There's hope. Keep believing in the system. Here are these people speaking idealistic things, and they're speaking their mind. And the more we allow ourselves to be like, oh, okay, maybe Mamdani is the answer. Maybe AOC is the answer. Maybe if the two of them just got together and were on the same ticket with Bernie Sanders, you know, giving them oral pleasure while they did it, everything would work out. I have to tell you, absolutely not. And I know that's hard to hear. I know that's hard to hear. I want to think that too. I'm a person on planet Earth. I would like to think that someone like Mamdani could just be like the daddy we all want to fix everything. And then the system would be transformed from the inside out, and everything would just, you know, materialize in a way that was actually genuinely sustainable and yada, yada, yada. I go on and on. It's not happening within this structure. And I've talked about it before. It's because of the marriage between corporate interests and politics. So the reason why I say that we have to figure out, us whiteys, okay, it's really us whiteys who are responsible for racism in America. And I guess you could argue, oh, there's racism in India and everyone's Indian. Sure. That's true. There's racism in China and everyone's Chinese, and there's still racism in countries where everyone is technically the same race. However, in America, racism is rooted in white supremacy. It's rooted in, well, okay, do you know the birth of whiteness? Let me tell you about it, okay? in case you don't know. So basically, there was a rebellion, I think it's called Bacon's Rebellion, that happened where this was when the British were colonizing America, and they had black slaves, Native American slaves, and white slaves. Okay, so, but it was mostly the blacks and the white slaves. So African slaves and white slaves that were both slaves. And what happened is there was this rebellion where there was an alliance between the black and the white slaves and the Native Americans. I think that's how it worked. And what happened is the British Empire was like, this is very threatening. If the black and the white slaves align themselves with the Native Americans, yowza, we don't like this. This is not good for business. This is not good for social control. So they were like, if we give the white slaves just like a little more privilege, a little more access, not a lot, just a little smidge more, then that is going to create resentment between the African slaves and the white slaves, and then they're going to be harder to unify. This is what white privilege is. It was genuinely just giving a little bit more privilege to white slaves in order to create social division. Research it, look it up, okay? I only can remember so much. I'm only one person. So that is the birth of whiteness. I mean, you know, and also I think, as you know, whiteness has shifted over the years. I don't know if I've talked about this on the pod before, but of course, Irish people were not considered white for some time. Italian people were not considered white. It was only when it behooved the white supremacist agenda that they brought in more whiteys to be white, to be oppressors, right? So this is a construct. This is what people mean when they say race is a construct. Another example I can give to you, if you want to give to others, is let's take money, which is also an illusion. Just like race is an illusion, because we're all humans. I'm not saying that there isn't a different aesthetic. Yes, there is a different aesthetic. I'm not silly. I understand there's an aesthetic. But where the value of race, the white supremacy of race, right? That is where we have to look at the manipulation and the social control. So money is paper. Money is just pieces of paper. It's representative of something else. Money does not mean anything without the representation that we put on top of it, right? It's a social contract. It's not real. We make it real by a collective spell. We are in an imagination, a global imagination game where money has a currency. Of course, money has no value except for the value we give it. That's how it works, right? So, $5, a $5 bill is a piece of paper. It is no different than the piece of paper that is the $100 bill. It's the same piece of paper. However, we call one piece of paper $5 and one piece of paper $100, and we assign different values to the same piece of paper. This is what racism is. We're all humans. We're all the same species. We are the species of Homo sapien, and we assign value just like the perceived imaginary pieces of paper. We assign value based on race, but there is no difference between the humanity of one race and another. It's all the same species. So that is how racism works as a tool of manipulation. And I think where I get irritated at whiteys is when they think the Democratic Party does not represent the same racist values as the Republican Party. It does. It's just a little more covert about it. And if it didn't, where is the pushback? Why do we have so many racist policies baked into our political system? Why would not every opportunity for a Democratic president to be in power, would they not completely dismantle all the racist policies that are truly embedded in our education system, in our medical system, in our political system, in our prison system, in our military system. I mean, I go on and on and on. Racism is not going to be solved by our political affiliation. Racism is only going to be solved through our collective healing and refusing to be manipulated by our racist programming. So this is why I think, okay, you have these MAGA people who are questioning their affiliation to Donald Trump. Are they racist? Very much potentially. Are a lot of Democrats racist? Absolutely yes. Yes, they are. And maybe they dress it up different, but I've been to plenty of nonprofit scenarios. I've been around lots of white people in circles and experienced very racist ideology amongst people who think they are progressive. I've been to hippie circles who are actively exploiting indigenous people, not paying them at all, letting them volunteer to hold space and be a representative of being down. Oh, I'm down with indigenous people. I have an indigenous person here. I'm okay. I'm doing the right thing. I don't have any white guilt. Look at the indigenous person that's affiliating themselves with me. Am I paying them to be here? No, they're volunteering their time. That's exploitation. Why aren't you paying them to do the emotional work of being there to represent you and to make you feel like you're not a white colonizer? You know, you get what I'm saying? So if Democrats refuse to see their own systemic, embedded, unconscious racism, they are missing the plot. They're missing the plot. And if you think that Republicans are the only racist political party, you're misinformed. So what do we do with these MAGA people who are having a genuine shift of consciousness? We must embrace them. I know you want to argue with me on that. Maybe some of you don't. Some of you do. Absolutely, I believe this. And why do I believe this? Because as a whitey, I have to help other whiteys be less colonizing in the best way that I know how, which is not shaming them, because I have my own white supremacist colonizing programming I'm untangling. Of course I am. Everyone is. If you are a white person in America, you should be untangling that. You should be examining your privilege. That's not something you do once and you're like, I'm done. I fixed it, you know. No, it's a lifelong process because we have been drastically conditioned of a dogma. You know what I'm saying? We have to constantly be checking it, constantly be reflecting on it. So when I see MAGA people who are wondering, where do I go next? Identity is a huge thing, okay, y'all? We all know this. The worst thing you could do to a human is ostracize them. So these people, they need a place to land. They need a place to land. Do I think that maybe they're misogynist and have some things to work on? 100%. Are they potentially racist? 100%. But we're all working on things. The point isn't to say, I only accept perfect people to be a part of my movement. No, only the perfect will be a part of my movement. Okay, well, you're going to have a pretty fucking small movement. You're going to have a movement of one Buddhist monk and probably some children. Because people are fucked up, my dude. People are fucking imperfect and people have problems and issues, and a movement has to be flexible. And we have to understand that people are going to be in a process of evolution that's going to last their whole lifetime. So I embrace anyone that's questioning the state. I embrace anyone who's questioning the status quo. That doesn't mean I'm going to be like, you're fine. You don't need to continue to do work. Absolutely not. We all need to do work. We need to continue to do work forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. That's why we're here on the planet, because we're on this hellscape planet, because for whatever reason, we're meant to learn and experience and feel and grow. No one's meant to just be in a state of stasis, because that's death. If you're not moving towards something and you're stagnant, you're dead. So we have to always be evolving and growing, but it has to be done in a way where we are embracing and like opening up our hearts to the potential that we're gonna have to have some messy coalitions that aren't gonna be easy or perfect. But if you're questioning the status quo, that's something. That's a start. And the racism, the misogyny, the homophobia, all of these things, they can be worked on. I've seen people change. I have seen drastic change in people. I don't know if we've talked about, the white supremacy movement. Yeah, I forget like what I say. But there's like tons of these guys that are doing like revolutionary work where they were once white supremacists, like in true white power movements that left the cult, and they're reforming men who are joining the cult because they're lonely and they're sad and they want community. So if we're going to reject people who are leaving their community, where are they going to go? We need to create community for people that are leaving their community, even if they're annoying. You're annoying too, so am I. We're all annoying. You don't just spend every second with them. But also to shame someone that's questioning their political identity, I think that's dangerous. I think that's the same vibration of genocidal consciousness. And I'm not being like hyperbolic. I know I say some things where I'm like, whoa, do you really mean that? I kinda do. Not that I don't get it. It's not that I don't get being angry. And again, if you are not white and you've experienced racism, you're on a different timeline of healing than for whiteys. You know what I'm saying? It's like, for a woman who's experienced sexual assault from men, I'm not going to go up to her and be like, you should just forgive men. You should just forgive and embrace men. No, okay, fine. That's like all women. So it's like a lot of women. And I do talk about how we can embrace men, but do it on your own fucking timeline if you've been assaulted and abused by men. But I haven't experienced racism because that's not my life experience. Therefore, it is my civic duty to figure out the conversion therapy of racists. That is like, because what's the alternative? You can't ask non-whites to do that work. Talk about emotional labor. And also, as a whitey, you can't ask for forgiveness and like legitimize. You can't legitimize yourself because you have non-white friends. You can't be like, well, I'm okay. I have non-white friends. I once met an indigenous person and they liked me and they gave me a gift, and therefore they must think I'm one of the good ones, and therefore, ha ha ha, I don't have to worry about that. Like, absolutely not. No, that's not how it works. I would like to think I was like above it all. No, all non-white people know I'm a good one. I mean, like, of course you want to think that, but you can't go around putting that emotional labor on someone. That's absurd. That's asking someone else to validate your colonizing. No, you got to come to terms with it within yourself and then keep coming to terms with it. That's what I think. So where do we go from here? I think it's up to us whites to dismantle white supremacy. It's got to be a white-led movement. Wait, that sounds like so fucking wrong. Only us whites. Let's start a white group to dismantle white supremacy. Maybe that's not what I mean, but I think you know what I mean. It is our civic responsibility to dismantle white supremacy. It is on us because we are the ones benefiting from white supremacy. So that's why we're the ones who must untangle the threads. And the way that we do that is by not being so self-righteous and thinking that like we're above the racists. That's what I think I'm really trying to say. You are not above the racists. You're just not. So that's why we have to figure out the conversation that we have with openly racist people and be like, let's work on that. As I also work on that. And that's why I think like the self-righteousness is so toxic, because if you're like to a fellow whitey and you're like, you're racist, I'm not, you're an idiot. It's like, that's not very inspiring, or is that connecting, or is that going to be effective? It ain't going to be effective. What you have to really make people understand is the racism is ruining your life. it's actually ruining your life. Even though we always talk about how racism impacts non-whites, it impacts whites the most because you're the oppressor. You're losing your humanity. You're using your spiritual connection. You're losing your like light. You can't be a light being of spiritual growth if you're a racist. It is actually much worse, I think, to be a perpetrator than to be a victim. Even though we always are like, the victim, the victim. But the victim isn't doing anything fucking wrong. They don't have that level of like layer, they're having things done to them, which sucks. We all know what it's like to be a victim. It sucks caca. And then the person that's the perpetrator gets to act like it's fine. It'll catch up. It'll catch the fuck up. You're gonna feel it in your body, in your health, in your spirit, in your soul, and your connection to godliness. It affects you, whether or not it's obvious. It affects you. Look, no one wants to shake Putin's hand. You know how embarrassing that must be every time he goes to shake someone's hand, no one shakes it? That's lonely. That's sad. And he pretends he doesn't care. He cares. You can see it in his eyes. These people pretend they don't care. They fucking care. Of course they care. You think they have black hearts, but they care. It hurts. So if you think that you're not being racist because you're like saving other people, that's another white savior complex. No, you're saving your goddamn self, your goddess darn self, excuse me. You're saving yourself by facing your racism. Save yourself, whites. Let's start an all-white group where we save ourselves. I mean, that sounds so fucking wrong, but like, that's what has to happen. Save yourself by not being racist. Save yourself by not being sexist. I mean, there's this guy who's like always writing me this like sexist shit. It's like, but I feel bad for him. I'm not like, oh my God, you guys. He sends me all this sexist stuff and I'm scared. I'm not scared of this guy. I'm not scared of him at all. I genuinely feel bad for him. I'm like, do you know the touch of a woman? Are you friends with any women? Do you know women? I mean, some women can be rude AF. I've experienced that. But like the friendship of a woman is really fucking unique and really dope. The friendship of a gay person, like you've not been friends with a gay dude before? What? To miss out on that? It's like, what are you talking about? Why would you want to miss out? If you're homophobic and you're not friends with gay people, they're not missing out, you're missing out. If you're not friends with women, you're missing out. If you don't know how to be friends with non-whites, you are missing out. They're not missing out. That's the other thing people have to understand is like, if you're just a racist, homophobic, misogynist, wow, what a small pool of people to hang out with, and truly not the funnest people. They're not. I've been to some country clubs in my life. I never had fun in a country club. I've never had fun at a country club in my life. So I think that that's what people really need to understand. You're missing out by being a white supremacist, misogynist, homophobe. It's a sad, sad life. Anyway, that's my pod for today. Please send it to anyone who you think would be interested. Oh my gosh, y'all, some girl messaged me on the gram yesterday. She said she had a 10-hour drive and she listened to all my episodes. I almost just flashed the camera. That's the kind of friend I want. She listened to 10 hours of me. Goddamn. I was so moved and touched by this. And if y'all are not listening to 10 hours of me, fucking rude. Are you sending this podcast to people? Are you sharing it? Do you like it? I need to know if you like it. Like, I do this 3 times a week now. Should I be doing this often? Am I banana pants? Am I not so butso? I'd like some thoughts on it. Are you into it? Also, are you sharing it? Are you rating it? Are you reviewing it? I don't even know where to go to look to see if you are. I know we have to all like leave Spotify. I'm like figuring that out. Like Spotify supports genocide, obviously the war machine. I think Apple does too. I don't really know where to go right now with the pod. I have not been uploading the videos on YouTube because I don't want to get censored, but maybe I just will do that. Also, the Patreon. I know I've been talking about the Patreon. Just fucking support my Patreon. Like, don't be a dick. That's my marketing for the Patreon. There's actually some really cool tiers. Also, book one-on-one sessions with me. Ask me questions for Ask Me Anything Monday. Come inside me podcast at gmail.com. Ask me your questions. Like, also, don't be a dick. Ask me questions. Give me something to talk about. The Patreon's dope. There's also ways to collaborate with me where I share my social media clout with you. Like, don't you want to be connected to me on social media? Some people probably would be very afraid. Others, into it. So there's opportunities for you to do like collab work with me. I'm hot. I'm bothered. I am in love with you. All right, great. Have a good day.